Okay, so picture this for a second. It's late, maybe 11:00 p.m. You're just absolutely fuming.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. A project has gone completely off the rails, or, maybe a vendor just tried to pull a fast one on a big contract.
Huh.
So you open up your email and you just let it rip.
You type out the raw, completely unvarnished truth.
Exactly. You type it all out,
Hmm?
and maybe you even you flag it confidential out of sheer habit. But then the rational part of your brain finally kicks in.
You step back from the ledge.
Yeah. You think, you know what, better not. So you don't hit send, you just leave it sitting right there in your drafts folder. It's digital therapy. It's safe.
It's private. I
Yeah.
mean, it's basically the modern equivalent of writing a burn book and shoving it under your mattress. You assume that because you didn't transmit it, it doesn't really exist for anyone else in the company.
Exactly. Until the next morning,
Huh.
you walk into the office, you grab your coffee,
Mm.
and your coworker, who you definitely did not want seeing that email, asks the company AI, hey, what's the latest on the project? And the AI, specifically Microsoft 365 Copilot, cheerfully says, oh, here's a summary of the draft email where the project lead calls the vendor a useless parasite.
It genuinely sounds like an anxiety dream. But this isn't hypothetical at all. This is exactly what went down with a massive privacy breach involving Microsoft 365 Copilot just a couple of months ago, specifically in January and February of 2026.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today for this deep dive. We're talking about incident CW1226324.
Which sounds like a very boring catalog number.
It really does. But for IT admins, it was essentially a horror movie. We've got the technical advisories, we have the fallout reports from the BBC and Bleeping Computer, and we're looking at the very angry comment threads from users who felt totally betrayed by this.
And look, the mission of this deep dive isn't just to sit here and say Microsoft messed up. I mean, we know that. The goal is to really understand how a system that was designed to be the ultimate enterprise productivity tool turned into an absolute governance nightmare. We need to unpack this server-side logic error that made it all possible. And honestly, we really need to talk about why the confidential label might just be dead in the water.
So let's start right at the crime scene. What exactly broke here? Because Copilot is constantly sold on this massive promise of enterprise-grade security. It is not supposed to be the office gossip.
That is the pitch, yes. The core promise of Microsoft 365 Copilot is that it respects the permissions you already have in place. It operates on what Microsoft calls the grounding principle.
Meaning it shouldn't show you anything you don't already have the rights to open yourself?
Precisely. If you can't double-click a file and open it, the AI shouldn't be able to summarize it for you. And specifically, if a document has a confidential sensitivity label applied to it, or if it falls under any data loss prevention controls.
Those are two rules.
Right, DLP. The AI is supposed to treat that data like kryptonite. It is supposed to exclude it from its index entirely. It's a hard stop.
Okay, so that's the theory. But in late January 2026, that theory just completely fell apart.
Completely. The retrieval pipeline, which is the part of the AI that actually goes out and fetches information to answer a user's prompt, suffered what they called a server-side logic error.
I want to pause on that phrase, server-side logic error, because it sounds so sterile. What does that actually mean in the real-world context of an AI system? Like, are we talking about a hacker breaking in here?
No, and honestly, that's what makes this so much more unsettling. There was no hacker. The call was coming from inside the house. To understand this, you really have to understand how RAG works.
Retrieval augmented generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you ask the AI a question, the system searches your company's internal data for relevant documents, it retrieves them, and then it feeds them to the large language model to actually generate your answer.
Okay.
Usually there is a very rigorous filtering step right in the middle there. Think of it like a bouncer checking IDs at a club. Does this user have permission to see this specific file? Is this file marked do not touch?
So the bouncer's checking the labels.
Right. But the logic error was essentially a Boolean inversion. Somewhere deep in that code, a check that was supposed to say, if confidential, exclude, true, essentially flipped to false.
So the bouncer didn't just fall asleep on the job. The bouncer actually started holding the door wide open.
Worse than that, the bouncer started handing out flyers to everyone outside about exactly what was going on inside the VIP room. The system bypassed the exclusion rules completely. And it didn't just happen anywhere. It specifically targeted the sent items and drafts folders.
Okay, sent items, I get why that's bad. But drafts, that feels significantly more dangerous to me. Why is the AI even looking in the drafts folder to begin with?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. Technically, the AI indexes everything in your mailbox, so it can be as helpful as possible. But drafts is a completely unique beast. It's not just another folder, it's a metadata nightmare.
How so?
Just think about the fundamental difference between a sent email and a draft email. A sent email is a published record. You hit send, you stood by those words. A draft is unpolished, unstructured intent. It's where you write down the messy lawsuit strategy before legal actually approves it. It's where you jot down your aggressive salary negotiation figures. It's emotional, it's raw, and very often it's just wrong.
Right, so stuff you deliberately decided not to say.
Exactly. And when an AI retrieves that draft, it treats it as a fact. It treats it as part of the official corporate knowledge base. So suddenly you have an AI summarizing your unchecked emotional venting as if it is company policy.
Wow.
That is not just a data breach. That is a massive reputation destroyer.
And this went on for weeks, right? Like, this wasn't just a 5-minute blip on a Tuesday.
No, it was detected in late January and finally fixed in early February. For weeks, the AI was operating with this massive blind spot across these organizations.
So naturally, Microsoft had to come out and respond to this.
Yeah.
And I was reading their official statement to the BBC, and I have to be honest, it felt a little bit gaslighty to me.
Can we talk about their defense here? Oh, it was definitely the standard corporate crisis playbook. Their spokesperson heavily emphasized that the bug, and I quote, did not provide anyone access to information they weren't already authorized to see.
Okay, let's stop right there. Authorized to see. I feel like that phrase is doing an incredible amount of heavy lifting for them. Because technically, sure, permissions are permissions, but does that actually hold water in the real world of an office?
Not really. It relies on a very rigid, hyper-technical definition of access that completely ignores how humans actually work and interact.
Give me an example of what you mean.
Okay, take a shared mailbox. Let's say you have a department finance mailbox. You have the CFO checking it, and you also have a junior data analyst checking it. Technically, both of those users have full access permissions because the analyst needs to get in there to process incoming vendor invoices.
Right. So from a purely technical standpoint, the system says the analyst could read absolutely anything in that mailbox.
Technically, yes, but socially and operationally. The analyst knows they are only in there for invoices. They do not go digging through the CFO's personal subfolders looking for drafts about upcoming department layoffs.
Right, they get fired.
Exactly. The security in that scenario is based on obscurity and social norms. The analyst has no business reason to look, so they don't look.
Until the AI enters the chat.
Bingo. The analyst innocently asks Copilot, hey, are there any updates on the Q3 budget? Copilot, because of this glitch, scans the entire shared mailbox, bypasses the confidential tags, finds the CFO's draft about slashing the budget by 20% and firing 3 people, and cheerfully summarizes it.
So the AI surfaces the needle in the haystack that the analyst never in a million years would have found on their own.
Exactly. Microsoft says, well, the analyst had technical permission to the mailbox, but the expert community, and honestly just common sense, says, yeah, but you just completely violated the context of that permission. The AI basically weaponized that access.
That perfectly leads into this concept I saw highlighted in the Windows forum analysis. They called it internal data exposure. Can you explain that? Because it really sounds like we are creating a brand new category of data breach here.
We really are. Historically, a breach means data left the building. Hackers broke in and stole it. This is entirely different. When the AI reads that confidential draft and summarizes it, it is creating a brand new piece of text. That specific summary did not exist before that prompt.
That's a derivative work.
Right. And now that brand new summary is displayed directly on the junior analyst's screen. It might even be automatically saved in their Copilot chat history. You have effectively created a permanent audit trail of exposure that didn't exist 5 seconds ago.
That's wild.
You've taken a tightly held secret, turned it into a public bulletin, and distributed it. And because it all happened internally, your traditional firewalls and security alerts didn't trip at all.
It's stealthy. And speaking of the stakes here, I saw in the reports that this issue even flagged up for the NHS, the National Health Service over in England. That takes us from awkward office politics straight into patient data territory, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Now, we do have to be fair here and impartially report the facts. The NHS came out and officially confirmed that patient data was not exposed to the public and it remained with the creators.
Okay, that's good.
Yes. But just the fact that this specific bug code, CW1226324, appeared on an internal support dashboard for a massive national health service, really highlights the sheer scale of this problem.
Yeah, it's not just tech startups using this, it's hospitals, it's government agencies. Which really makes you wonder why. Why did this happen? We know the technical, how the Boolean logic flipped, but why is a company with Microsoft's infinite resources releasing code that has such a fundamental flaw in its core exclusion logic?
That is the deeper cultural question. And if you look at the commentary from outside experts, people like Nader Hainane at Gardner or Professor Alan Woodward from the University of Surrey, they both point to one massive underlying cause: the AI arms race.
The hype cycle.
Exactly. It's the unsubstantiated AI hope, as Hainane calls it. There is immense crushing pressure on all these tech giants to just ship products. They need to get the next feature out the door to keep the stock price up, to stay ahead of Google, to stay ahead of OpenAI.
So you're saying quality assurance is basically taking a backseat to speed.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's taking a back seat, but the car is moving so incredibly fast that the seatbelt checks are definitely getting rushed. Professor Woodward put it very bluntly to the BBC. He said, data leakage will happen.
It's inevitable.
Right. He argues that because the development speed is just breakneck right now, these kinds of server-side logic errors are practically statistically inevitable.
That has to be absolutely terrifying for an enterprise buyer, though.
Hmm.
You're buying a very expensive tool that promises to make your team more efficient, but the leading experts are basically saying, hey, just accept that it's going to leak your highly sensitive data occasionally.
It fundamentally breaks the corporate risk model. Think about how corporate security has worked for decades. It is usually deterministic.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning if I do X, Y happens. If I check the box in the software that says encrypt, the file is encrypted. It's binary. It works, or it throws an error. But with these generative AI systems and this rush to constantly update them server-side, we are moving into a world where security is probabilistic.
Probabilistic.
Yeah, it will probably respect your confidential label unless, there's a server-side logic error this week.
You cannot run a corporate legal department on the word probably.
No, you really can't. And that is exactly why you see so much genuine frustration in the user comments. I know you were looking at the Bleeping Computer forums. What was the general vibe over there?
Oh, it was incredibly cynical. I mean, tech forums are always a bit cynical, but this was different. It wasn't just raw anger, it was deep resignation. One user, going by the name Ken_Summan, basically translated Microsoft's PR statement as, oops, sorry, we were just reading those emails for our internal use. We did not mean to show you that we were reading them.
That cuts right through the corporate jargon, doesn't it?
It really does. Because it highlights the uncomfortable truth that the AI is always processing this stuff in the background. The glitch was just that it got caught showing the end user the results.
Right.
And then there was another comment that honestly sent a chill down my spine. A user named 2022 Computer Issues joked about Copilot eventually being called as a witness in criminal trials. They wrote, Mr. Copilot, please summarize all illegal things your owner does.
Is it really a joke, though?
That's the exact thing. It sounds like a joke, but if the AI is constantly indexing my drafts, my deleted items, my sent folder, it is effectively building a comprehensive profile of my intent.
It is creating a searchable repository of your psyche, and that repository is legally discoverable. If your company is in a massive lawsuit and the opposing counsel demands all AI summaries generated regarding Project X, that is real, admissible evidence.
And people feel so trapped by this. There was a lot of sentiment in those forums about, I want to leave Windows, I want to switch my whole company to Linux, but we run on these mission-critical apps. It's the classic lock-in effect. You're strapped into this AI roller coaster, and you can't get off just because the safety bar feels a little bit loose.
That is the harsh reality of enterprise software today. So since we can't just all quit our corporate jobs and move to a cabin in the woods, we really have to talk about the fix. What do companies actually do about this going forward?
Right. Let's look at the path forward. Microsoft did deploy the server-side fix in early February 2026. So technically, the immediate hole is plugged. But the sources provided a checklist for companies, and I really want to push back on some of this because it sounds great on paper, but incredibly hard in practice.
Let's go through the checklist.
Okay, the immediate first step, audit the Copilot logs. Look for any summarize or read events that hit the sent and drafts folders during the breach window in January. That sounds sensible, right? Just check the tapes.
It is sensible in theory, but it is a massive undertaking. You are asking stretched IT teams to sift through potentially millions of routine events just to see if the AI accidentally touched something it shouldn't have. And honestly, even if you find an exposure event, then what? You go to the user and say, hey, the AI told you a major company secret 3 weeks ago. Please forget it.
Please unsee that layoff notice.
Oh,
Well, yeah, that is definitely not happening.
no.
The next short-term recommendation is even more aggressive. It says to force disable Copilot entirely for high-risk units, like legal, HR, R&D. Just turn the whole thing off until you're absolutely sure the protections are validated.
See, from a pure security standpoint, this is the smartest move. But it is the hardest thing to sell politically inside a company. Because you just spent an absolute fortune on these premium Copilot licenses. You went to the board and promised it would increase department efficiency by 40%. Now you have to walk into the general counsel's office and say, yeah, I'm taking away your expensive new toy because it talks too much.
That is a career-limiting move for a Chief Information Security Officer. But is it necessary?
I think it is, at least for those specific crown jewel departments. Until the governance frameworks catch up to the technology, you have to treat the AI as an untrusted user on your network.
And that leads perfectly to the long-term fix that the security experts are calling for, which they call AI-aware DLP.
Yes, this is the massive architectural shift we need. Traditional data loss prevention was built entirely for human actors. The rules say, stop Bob from emailing this sensitive Excel file to his personal Gmail account.
Right, human actions.
But an AI doesn't email files. It silently ingests them into a massive vector index. We need completely new security architectures that treat the AI's index as a distinct sink destination that needs its own highly specific locks and keys. We need to be able to explicitly say in the system, this data can be read by human Bob, but it absolutely cannot be indexed by Bob's AI assistant.
Wait, so we need to fundamentally separate the human user's permission from their AI's permission. Just because I am allowed to see it doesn't automatically mean my digital assistant should be allowed to learn it.
Exactly. That decoupling is the crucial missing layer in enterprise security right now.
That makes a lot of sense. But then there is this other, much wilder demand from the expert analysis. They talk about needing forensic snapshots and the actual ability to delete knowledge from the model.
Yes, the machine unlearning problem.
It sounds totally sci-fi to me, like wipe the droid's memory.
It kind of is. Think about it. Right now, if an AI reads a confidential document during a glitch, that specific information becomes part of its context window or it gets embedded in its retrieval index. If you panic and delete the original source document, does the AI magically forget the summary it already generated? Does it forget the conceptual connections it made?
Does it?
Not necessarily. And the experts are saying that vendors, whether it's Microsoft, Google, whoever, they need to provide enterprise customers with a verified kill switch for specific memories. If I accidentally feed the AI a $1 million trade secret, I need a button that says, burn that specific neural pathway right now.
We are so incredibly far away from having that kind of granular control, aren't we?
We are miles away. Which brings us all the way back to what the security community calls the principle of least surprise. These experts argue that AI should be strictly opt-in when it comes to confidential data. It simply shouldn't touch a file labeled confidential unless the user explicitly grants it temporary permission in that specific moment.
It seems like such an incredibly low bar. Like, don't read the folder marked secret unless I specifically say Simon says read the secret folder.
And yet, here we are. It turns out common sense is not common code.
Wow. So, if we zoom out from the technical weeds for a second, we had a glitch. It was a bad one, but it got fixed. But this whole event really feels like a clarifying moment for everyone paying attention to this space.
It absolutely is a clarifying moment. It violently exposes the very brittle seam between the magic convenience of cloud AI and the rigid, unforgiving laws of data privacy.
Yeah.
We all want the convenience. We want the AI to write our boring emails and summarize the hour-long meeting we slept through. But we're collectively realizing that the hidden price of that convenience might just be a total loss of control over our own data.
It's a huge trade-off. And I think for a very long time, we all sort of accepted that the trade-off was just, well, I have to share my data with Microsoft servers. But now we realize the actual trade-off is I might accidentally share my private data with everyone in my office who happens to ask the AI the right question.
That is the real, tangible risk. And it leaves us with a very difficult question going forward. If the confidential stamp, which has basically been the absolute gold standard of corporate security for 50 years, if that stamp doesn't stop the AI from snooping, what actually will?
Is there anything right now?
Pure vigilance. And maybe a fundamental change in our own behavior. If you are typing a thought into a networked corporate computer, you just have to assume an AI is reading it over your shoulder. It changes how you draft your emails. It changes how you vent your frustrations.
It really brings us right back to where we started this whole conversation.
Yeah.
If you want to keep a secret at work, maybe just don't type it into the massive machine that is explicitly designed to share knowledge.
Or, just get a pen and some paper.
The ultimate air-gap device,
Yeah.
a spiral notebook.
It's completely unhackable.
Well, until you lose it on the train on the way home.
True. Always a vulnerability.
Always a vulnerability.
Yeah.
Look, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over here. We are always talking about ROI, return on investment, with these new AI tools. My Copilot saved me 2 hours of busy work this week, but we really need to start calculating what I'd call the risk premium.
Right.
If a tool saves you an hour of typing, but it carries even a 1% chance of exposing your deepest strategic secrets or your personal angry events to your boss, is that hour actually worth the cost of control?
That is the exact calculation every C-suite executive and honestly every single employee needs to make before they click enable.
A terrifying but absolutely necessary calculation. We're going to leave it right there for today. Do yourself a favor, check your drafts folder, and maybe delete some of those angry emails you haven't sent yet, just to be safe.
Please do.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay safe out there, stay skeptical, and we will catch you next time.